Trying to find a trail to sniff my way back home. Black skies and velvet and chrome.
And we are live. Welcome everyone who is here. Welcome to this month's episode of Game Night Insight, where we are going to be discussing games that we know are bad, but we love them anyway. And let's be fair, we've all got guilty pleasures in our lives, whether we're talking about games or movies or TV shows or books. But in this case, we're going to be talking about games and why are they bad and why do we like them anyway? And also, is it possible for a game to be objectively bad, or is that really just all subjective anyway? And we're going to discuss that. Feel free to join us in the chat. So I'm going to go around and introduce everybody. So first off, I guess I'll start with our special guest. We have Lynn over here. I'm pointing in the right direction now. Lynn, who is often my co-host on the Board Game Kaptain. If you watch my channel, you've probably already seen her. But Lynn, where can people find you on social media?
I don't really do a lot of social media. It's maybe Instagram. I check it like twice a week.
Good evening, Ms. Brown.
Who can blame you?
Yeah. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. And then, of course, going clockwise around the board here, we have Angela. Angela has 2 YouTube channels. Angela, what are your YouTube channels and where can people find you?
My YouTube channels are GirlyGamer and Board Game Gran. Board Game Gran for the board gaming stuff.
And I recommend subscribing to both because the Girly Gamer stuff also has a lot of really cool stuff on video games and VR. And if you go all the way back to some of her much older videos, I think, have you still got all the old Nerf mod and costume videos?
Yeah, they're all there. I don't really upgrade that channel very much, but feel free to watch old videos if you like.
The old ones are good, so I recommend.
Thank you.
And then we've got Riley, who has 2 podcasts. Riley, where can people find your podcasts and what are their names?
Yeah, so I've got the Board Game Community Show. That's the one that's focused on the board gaming world. Interview a bunch of people in the board game community. It's a lot of fun. Last week was Patrick Leader. So that was
from Leader Games.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a really cool interview. And then the week before was Nikki Valens, which is another great get. They're just awesome. And then let's see, the other one, Friend and Foe Adventure Co. is an actual play podcast where me and some friends play the Borderlands tabletop RPG, and that's explicit though. So if that's not your thing, don't worry about it.
Fair enough. All right. So, does anyone have any news before we get started on our main topic? Anybody got any news they want to cover?
I don't think so.
No, bit of a news light month. Fair enough. All right, so we're going to. I guess we're just going to jump right into it if nobody's got any news. So games we love, but we know they're bad. And why are they bad? Why do we still love them? Why are we gluttons for punishment? We just keep coming back for more, even though we've been abused and kicked to the curb. We just keep coming back to these games. I don't know where I've gone with this analogy. It's weird. I'm just going to move on. So, I think maybe let's start by, in addition to taking feedback from the chat, which let's see, we've got another message here. Daiku Games. Hey, Daiku. Hey, everybody. Looking forward to hearing the answers. And feel free to join in the chat if you want to let us know what are some games you love, even though you objectively know they are bad. And why are they bad? But why do you love them? Let us know in the chat, and I'll be addressing between our answers. But let's go through a couple of our own. Lynn, why don't we start with you since you're our guest host? What is a game that you'd like to talk about that you know is bad, but you love it anyway?
Well, I have 2. The first one is Fantasy Forest, and it's a child's first fantasy adventure, like the box says. And it's pure nostalgia for this one. I had this when I was a kid and I would play it with my grandma. But I mean, it's very simple. It's not roll and move. You use the cards to move, but it's still very simple and not very good.
But so it's
There
not
is
very good
fighting,
because
though.
is
There's
it not
fighting.
very good because it's overly simplistic, or
Yeah.
is that basically it? It's because it's a kiddie game.
Yeah. Pretty
But then-
much.
But then why do you still love it?
For nostalgia, I play with my grandma.
That's fair enough. What about no?
Have you played it in a while? When was the last time you played this?
I played it with Josh a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I
can
can tell
agree,
from
it's-
his reaction. It's great.
it's not very good. It's not a
Even
good
though-
game.
Even though there's fighting in it, he doesn't like it.
Aw.
It's very basic, but I could see this as being the type of game back when it came out that would have been good to play with kids. But now the other one, I happen to know the other game you chose has a bit more of an interesting reason why you still like it. Do you want to briefly touch on that?
Yeah. The other game is the Eurovision Song Contest board game. And well, the reason why this is bad is it's a trivia game. And so the minute the next contest came out and we had a winner, it was obsolete because there's questions in there like how many times have this country won, and like that's wrong now.
You can't just like write on the card and update it.
I
But
guess you could.
It was. I had to buy it because I knew I would regret if I didn't buy it, and it was really cheap. It was like 20 euros.
Yeah.
So right there, I was like, "This game is not going to be great because it's only 20 euros, but I'm going to buy it."
I was gonna say they did do this interesting thing with a kind of set collecting mechanic, but that's totally outside of the fact that the main mechanic of the game is literally just trivia and do you know the trivia or not. So now, okay, so it's bad because basically it's a trivia game, and the thing about trivia games,
and it's like 3 years obsolete now because
Right,
it
and
came out when Portugal hosted.
right? So it's
So-
all right. So it's bad because it was instantly obsolete, and it's bad because it's just a trivia game. And the thing about a trivia game is you get asked a question, it's you know it or you don't, and if you don't know it, that's it. It can be very frustrating.
It does have some multiple choice questions, but still, you need to know it.
But then why do you still love it?
Because I love the Eurovision Song Contest. It's just cheesy and fun, and I don't know.
So it's all about the theme for you then. The theme is what
it's
makes
just
you still
a
enjoy it.
ridiculous thing that Europe does every year, and it makes me happy.
Okay.
Well,
right.
Europe and Australia.
There's a couple other countries that are.
I love it as well, Lynn. I am right there with you. We watch it every year. It's balmy and it makes you feel good. Yeah.
I do watch it every year with Lynn as well. So yeah, I was gonna say, Riley, have you ever watched Eurovision?
No, I don't even know where to watch it. Like,
Oh,
It's they have, if you have Peacock, the streaming service, they
Oh, yeah.
have the last like 2 years on there.
it's
I may
definitely a
have
lot
to
of
check it
fun.
out then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're out of the loop. You're the only one in the group who hasn't seen it yet. So you have to
Yeah.
watch it now. It's mandatory. So Angela, I'm gonna go to you. What game do you have to discuss?
Do you know, my game that I've got to discuss was Bob Ross. That's the one that I sent you the image of. Yep, Bob Ross. What is it? Art of Chill.
Yes, The Art of Chill.
Because I went through my collection, I found it really hard to find a horrible game because I'm obviously very popularist when I'm making my purchases. Everybody loves the games that I own. But hearing Lynn speak, I've actually thought of 2 others as well. So
Go
that
ahead.
was really handy.
Well, what's the Bob Ross like? What? Why do you think like maybe other people don't think it's a great game, or why you recognize it might not be like a great game, but you still enjoy it?
Yeah, I know some people do like it, but I saw some horrible reviews of it. But personally, I think it's named perfectly. It's just so chill.
Mhm.
Like it's a fun little art game to play. And how can you not love Bob Ross?
What
Yeah.
style of game is it? I haven't played it.
It's just a wee art game where you collect the colors on your palette and you fulfill artworks, and you're sort of trying to beat Bob from memory. I haven't played it for a while, but
Do you actually draw?
No. It's a card. It's got cards with the colors and things on it. It's an easy family game. I think it came out in Target in America. I think that's where I actually bought it.
That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So is it just? Do you think it's bad because it's too easy? Is it too light? Is it too simplistic?
Well, of the reviews that I read, and then I got it anyway, which is unusual because I usually go for good reviews. It's too light. It's Bob Ross. It's, they're milking the IP of Bob Ross, that kind of thing. And sadly, I don't think Bob Ross's family get any of the money from anything he does, which is terrible.
There's an actual really sad story to the fact that the people who own the IP of Bob Ross right now basically stole it from him and his family, and it's kind of awful.
Yeah, which is awful.
Yeah, but aside from that, though, because we're just talking about the games, but you like it because of how thematic it is, or because you were saying
I like it because it's chill, like the game says. There's no drama in it. You just making colors and fulfilling a painting. That's it. There's not a whole lot to it.
Fair enough.
And I like art games. My wife collects art games, so there's probably loads behind me somewhere. Yeah.
So now, Riley, how about you? Give us some of your picks for games that are objectively lousy, but you love them anyway, and why?
Well, on that same note, I was reminded of Keeping It Sexy, which is so
the Kenny
great.
G game.
Kenny G game, yeah. And it is just so good. Like, it's a co-op game, and you're pretty much trying to help Kenny G have a great day from morning to night. And so it starts off with like a couple of rounds of morning where it'll have some sort of obstacle, like his morning coffee tastes bad, and so it's like you have to try and solve that problem.
This is not what I was expecting. This is weird.
No, it's not what I was expecting either.
No, yeah.
Brilliant.
And so everybody's got different cards, and I wish I could. I had pictures of the cards, but a lot of them are kind of like innuendos as well, so it's like a bit adult in a way. But playing with a child, they probably wouldn't register that, like, oh, that's naughty, and that's how a lot of like the problems too are. I wish I had. I don't own the game. So I just played it with my wife's family. They had gotten it as kind of like a joke gift, and they brought it to a family outing because they know I love board games. And I was like, this is actually really fun. Like, this is a decent co-op, and it was more challenging than you would expect.
But then why is it bad?
I mean, the IP is Kenny G. It is.
You have to ask.
Well, he's being very positive. I mean, everything he's saying is like, but it's actually good. It's really good. And I'm like,
really good.
But then why is it bad? Is it just the theme?
I think it's just the theme. The Kenny G theme seems like a dumb game. And you know what? I can say I remembered one of the cards. It's like Sacks with Friends. And so like that's a card you play, and then it allows somebody else to play a card outside of their normal turn. So if you don't have a card, anyways, just there's a lot of like puns like that, and that's probably another reason why it's so bad. And if you're not into puns, you're not gonna think this game is very funny because there are so many puns.
How about another one? What's another one you had? Because you had a bunch actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's ones I think like Marvel United has a split audience. Like, I think it's great. The base game stuff is very, very light, kind of dull. Even the characters, which is too bad. They should have, I don't know, not made it so simple. in the base game, but everything else, like all the Kickstarter exclusives and the expansions, add more weight to it. Plus I get to paint miniatures. So with that one, it's just like people heard Eric Lang, you know, and they thought like, yes, this is going to be some really cool epic Marvel game. And then they get it and it's like, wow, I can play this with my 8-year-old nephew, you know, like, and I do, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it for a lot of reasons. So
I'm going to throw out a couple real quick, and then I'm sure some of the other ones that we've all gotten prepared for, we're going to probably throw out throughout our conversation as well. But a couple quick ones I have. Mine are all nostalgia based. Is why I still like them. The ones I have specifically the Lone Wolf and Cub game, as well as Titan. And in both cases, we're talking about old school style bookcase games. Titan was from the bookcase game line from Avalon Hill. Lone Wolf and Cub was an old Mayfair game. These are quite dated. Both of these are from the 80s. And the thing is, the mechanics of these games don't really hold up very well. Lone Wolf and Cub is an adventure game. Some of the mechanics were interesting. They were very interesting for their day, but they just don't really hold up. People have done it better. Titan is a interesting sort of like wander around the map, land on spaces, recruit monsters into your armies, run into your enemies and fight them. But the problem with Titan, and the reason I think it's kind of objectively bad, is that if you play more than 2 players, there can be player elimination, and this is one of those games that can be theoretically endless. So that, you know, someone who gets eliminated is going to sit off to the side, not having any fun anymore. And I think that is an objectively bad thing. It's one of the few things where I can say that like a game is definitely no longer subjective, but objectively bad, because for that person, it's just bad. They're not having fun anymore.
yeah.
Right? So, okay, the big question now.
Well,
go ahead.
I know that Angela thought of some inspired by Lynn. Did you want to share some of those while you were?
You know, the first one everyone will have heard of, Trivial Pursuit, which I personally love because I love trivia. But the other one I bet no one's heard of, and it's called That's Not Lemonade. And it's a little card game. And the reason I love it is my grandkids think it is the most hilarious game ever made, and they will giggle their way through it because you're collecting, I think it's lemons from memory. It's a card game, and it's sort of a push your luck thing in that, are you going to draw that next card? Is it going to be another lemon, making your hand better? Is it going to be ice, which I don't think really affects your hand but gives you more cards? Or is it going to be That's Not Lemonade, which... It's obviously I'm assuming. And when you get That's Not Lemonade, the kids go wild. They think it's absolutely hilarious.
Oh my gosh. There we go.
I found it.
Yeah,
is that the game?
It's a silly thing.
Oh no.
It's a bad game. But it's honestly, you play that with kids, they're gonna laugh.
So it's the silly factor. It's the humor. It's the social interaction that makes you like it, even though you know the game is bogus.
The joy. Like Lynn's game earlier, she remembers playing it with her nan or a gran. That, you know, that makes it. It feels nice.
Okay,
that's
so
awesome.
All right, so we've got some more ones that we've all put in, and I'm sure they'll come up through this conversation. But the big point, I think, a big part of this conversation, big root of this topic is it possible for a game to be objectively bad? We've given reasons why we think some of these games are objectively bad. They're outdated, they're old, they're too simple, they're kiddyish, there's not enough actual mechanics there. It really relies on you making the fun yourselves. But is that true? Does this make this game objectively bad, or is this all still subjective? Because when you're talking about opinions, generally everything is subjective. So I think there are very rare occasions, I'm just going to start off real quick, where I'm going to say I think there are very rare occasions where something is objectively bad, but I do think it does happen, and I think something like Titan, where you can eliminate a player half an hour into the game, and the game goes on for another 2.5 hours, that's not good. That's objectively bad for that player. They're not having fun anymore. But I would say mostly it's all subjective. But I want to hear some other people's opinions. Who wants to go next?
Well, I want to remind you about that Kraft Heinz pack.
Oh God.
If you don't think those are objectively bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but are those the rare examples? I want to get a picture of that. Are those the rare examples that prove, that it is such a rarity for something to be objectively bad?
Well, you just asked if it was possible, and the answer is obviously yes. You didn't ask about the percentage of
Oh man.
objectively bad games.
God, when they sent me this game to review, and I told them, and if I like it, it's going to show up in other videos. I don't think they thought it was going to show up in this way. But when a game is bad, you do have to call it out. So I had gotten this game. There it is. The Kraft Heinz Variety Pack. It actually looks like food, doesn't it? So they sent me an email, the company, which is actually funny enough. This company has appeared on this video 3 times now. I feel like we're beating up on them.
Yeah.
But it's the same company that made Keeping It Saxy and the Bob Ross game. So they shot me an email and were like, "Hey, we're releasing this game, the Kraft Heinz Variety Pack." And I was like, "Oh, this is so kitschy, so fun, so weird." I'm like, "Yeah, send it to me. I'll review it." And then all 3 games are from like abysmally bad to almost mediocre. Like the best game is like just making it to mediocre. And yeah, it just wasn't good. It's not. I would say 2 out of 3 of the games are abysmally bad, and the third one is just kind of okay-ish, but not even really. Like it's like okay, but you're like, yeah, but
It wasn't okay.
Do you think with the right group, like it
No.
might? No. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. No hesitation.
That was resounding, wasn't it?
Yeah. Perfect. That's what I wanted to know.
No, she's right. It was bad. It was just it for those who haven't played it, don't play it. So here's the thing. Jello Jiggler Slap is an awful speed-based card game that actually literally makes you jiggle in your seat. The Kraft Macaroni and Cheese game is a game that like defeats its own purpose. It's just lame. And then the ketchup game, the Heinz ketchup game, is a game that tries to sort of do what Zombie Dice does, but doesn't do it anywhere near as well. And even at this point, Zombie Dice is getting dated. And then you come out with a game, this was just like a year or 2 ago, that tries to do what Zombie Dice did, 15 years ago now, and doesn't do it as well. You're like, yeah, no, this is not good. So it was a big disappointment. So that's Lynn's throwing her hat in the ring for there definitely are objectively bad games. Is that basically what you were saying with that group?
Yes.
Okay, so what makes them objectively bad?
Well, they're just not fun. I only played the ketchup one.
Oh yeah, I played it. All right. I'm gonna agree with you.
The other 2, and you wouldn't even let me play them.
No, they were terrible. No, it's just it's a lot of rules that make no sense. A lot of rules that were
the ketchup
pointless.
one just didn't make sense. It had multiple sides of the dice that like didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And
yeah, all of them felt like that. There were a lot of mechanics in there that were useless, that didn't make sense. Yeah, it really felt like it was rushed. They got the IP and they were like, let's just throw this thing out. I do want to. What is the name of that company? I can't remember offhand. Do you guys know? It's the same one. Let me see if it's on the box. For the other games, I want to see if it's on the box. I don't know. It's not. No, I don't see it there. All they do is get IPs to things and throw them out. But we actually played one of their other games that was pretty good. So I feel like we're beating up on them a lot. So I do want to throw out the Trapper Keeper game was pretty fun. They were the same people who put out the Trapper Keeper game. We played that at Gen Con and we liked it, which is why I thought, oh, they're a pretty good company, I guess.
Well, I mean, Angela and I both loved the Bob Ross and Kenny G games. So I would definitely be open to trying more games. Like I would love to play this Bob Ross game. Like it sounds like a chill time. Yeah. I think that's kind of fun. The condiments one or the, like snack pack, whatever it's called. Yeah, I could probably skip that one.
So, but what do you guys think? Let me hear from one of you guys. Is it? Are you convinced? Can games be objectively bad?
Look, we have the Shogunstein popped in with a.
Oh, let me say. Hold on. Shogunstein says the Pop Tart game was not bad, like that French Revolution game in a way with the cards. I haven't played the Pop Tart game. That's not one of the ones I've tried. Is that from the? I'm guessing that's from the same company. And he says the Bob Ross game is excellent, except the colors. Shogunstein is colorblind, so he
Oh,
must
okay.
it must not have been colorblind friendly. And that is an issue that a lot of companies don't take into account. It is very easy for those of us who are not colorblind to overlook the issue of colorblindness in games.
Yeah,
But
I'm
it is.
colorblind. I don't remember having a problem, but I'm colorblind with certain colors, so that's obviously why.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that can definitely be a problem for some people if it
Oh,
is
for
the colors
sure.
that affect.
Especially in a painting game when you're trying to match
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah, it
Definitely.
needs to be double coated, right?
Yeah, you need to have some symbol on there, a symbol
Yeah.
to show you what the color is,
Mhm.
which is a good way to do it. Okay, so Riley, can games be objectively bad?
So, I don't know if that's so hard to say, right? Because like the lemonade one, right? That could be terrible with a lot of people. But then you play it with kids, and all of a sudden, like they're laughing, and that is just cute. And it's like, even if you think it's a terrible game, you can't help but kind of love it there. The Lost game. All right, here I this is the perfect example. So
Okay.
the Lost game I bought when Lost was airing. You know, like this game had been out for a couple of months, I think, and I saw it at a store, and I was like, yes, I have to have this. I'm a huge Lost fan. So this is like, I don't know, anywhere from like 10 to 14 years ago. And I tried to play it once, and the rules are like a sheet and explain it. It's the worst rule book I've ever seen, rule sheet I've ever seen. It was so bad. And I wasn't really into like modern board games at that time. Like
Hmm.
I hadn't even played like Ticket to Ride or anything like that at that point.
Is it one of those sets of rules where you literally you read the rules and they don't work as written?
Well, kind of. So I busted this out like a couple of months ago because I made a new friend. He was over. We were looking at my collection of board games, and he's like, "What is this?" And he picked it up, and he's like, "We have to play this." So like a couple of weeks later, he came over, and we played Lost together, and we like read the rule book together, and you had to like really try hard to interpret the rules. And there's a website listed on there, but it's so old and did not do well enough. I don't think the company even exists anymore. So the website it sends you to is now something completely different.
Okay, so have you just convinced yourself then? Because that sounds objectively bad.
Right. It sounds objectively bad, but we got playing it, and I mean, there's like typos on the tiles, like where it's like draw two cards, you know, like there's all sorts of typos. There's like weird rules in it, but then we kind of just we had to like decide together, like, okay, what's the ruling here? Okay, now we know how to play it for the rest of the game. And then all of a sudden we'll get a card later, and it's like, obviously we decided wrong because this card infers that it is very different. But by the end, we were like laughing, and it went on for probably 2 hours, and we were having an absolute blast the entire time. But literally everybody I've talked to that has tried to play this game has given up, which I had tried to play it several times and given up, because I was like, this is just an objectively bad game.
Okay.
But having actually played it now, I'm like, this was really fun with the right person. You know, like this guy isn't a huge board gamer. I like he plays board games, but being able to nerd out over Lost, try and figure out and interpret the rules, and not get caught up in like the like, are we technically playing this right? Just being like, okay, well, this is how we're gonna play it because it doesn't explain it well enough. It was just wildly entertaining. So, but that might come to the like where it's such a bad game that it becomes fun, almost like watching bad movies and making fun of it.
Okay, I feel like I have a response to this, but before I do, I want to check with Lynn if she does, because I feel like she could be more snarky than me
A
about this.
response to what?
To the description of the Lost game and on whether or not it's objectively bad, because he said he had fun with the right people with it. What do you
I
think?
think that's valid. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I
Yeah.
thought. Oh, okay. Not what I was expecting. Here's what I was going to say. I could give you a box of rocks and sticks with no rules, and you could figure out with the right group of people a game to play with those rocks and sticks. Does that make it a good board game, or does that make it objectively bad because it comes with no rules and you have to make the fun yourself? And I would say that makes it objectively bad because it comes with no rules and you have to make up the fun yourself. And that's on an extreme version what you're describing.
Kind of, yeah, in an extreme version. But if that's what your group is into, they do that kind of thing for design challenges. You can go to like design meetings and they have components and they're like, here are your components. You have a couple of hours, make something out of it. Like you and your group make something out of it. And that's really fun for people. I think I would enjoy doing that, actually. I kind of actually did that on another podcast the other week. And that was so much fun to do.
But is that playing the game, or is that a completely separate activity of being like, oh, well, as an activity, we're going to take this bad game and find a way to make it fun and make it good? That seems like a totally different activity than actually playing the game. And in regard to actually playing the game, if the rules don't teach you how to play right, that seems objectively bad to me.
I see that. Yeah. I think we're going to disagree here just because, because I guess if it's like you and your friends, here are these things, start playing it, right? Like that's essentially what it is. Like just go crazy, figure out whatever you figure out. And I think that would turn into like a really fun and entertaining experience. I guess that actually, maybe that's the thing, is it turns from like an objectively bad game to an amazing experience. And so maybe it's game versus experience, right?
So I think Shogunstein is coming in on your side. As a school teacher, I have brought in games that we as modern gamers easily dismiss, but kids love. So objectively bad is really in the eye of the beholder. So I think he is voting on subjective there, that it is a subjective thing. So basically backing you up, Riley. Angela, what are your thoughts? Can it be objectively bad? Can a game be objectively bad?
I think everything's subjective. So from that standpoint, I would say no, because you know what it is? I'm going to bring up the game that I'm surprised no one's mentioned yet, right. Monopoly. Right? That game gets hammered. It's like we love to hate it. Some people love Monopoly. I used to love playing Monopoly. So, is it objectively bad that, 99% of modern board gamers think it's trash?
I would say for one reason only. The one thing that's objectively bad in there is that there can be player elimination in a game that can go on forever, which always is objectively bad for the person who gets eliminated early on. Otherwise, if you were able to eliminate the player elimination, like if they were to do a new edition where somehow you weren't eliminated, you just played for a certain number of turns, and whoever had the most money wins, that would be completely subjective. It's just the whole player elimination thing, but that was very common for games in the mid 20th century. A lot of those multiplayer games had player elimination. It was the standard back then. So back then they wouldn't have considered it bad. In fact, it was considered very good when it came out. But by modern standards, I think that whole player elimination in a game that could go on forever is seen as objectively
bad. Don't some
bad.
modern games have that though?
I mean, there's like Nemesis. Nemesis has that, right? You could start playing and get outed, killed in the first like 15 minutes.
And that's a hugely popular game.
3 hours.
I haven't played it.
Okay.
I haven't played it, so I can't comment on it specifically. There are still games definitely that do have player elimination, but generally most of them get roasted by the community when they do. They're like, you're doing a player elimination in this day and age? I mean, you see that on Board Game Geek all the time. Now, I don't know about Nemesis because I haven't played it. But like, for instance, we were just playing Northgard, which is a 4X game. And if you get eliminated, when your turn comes back around, you just get to come back in a neutral territory. They've completely eliminated player elimination from the formula. And I think a lot more games are kind of leaning that way than still having player elimination.
Yeah, fair. I mean,
Not-
I don't
yeah.
like player elimination.
Yeah,
I think
neither do
it's
I.
a terrible thing to put in a game. But yeah.
When I played Zombicide for the first time recently, and that's co-op, and my brother got eliminated, and then I ended up playing for like 45 minutes while he just kind of like watched. And granted, like I kind of had him weigh in on some decisions, but I was like, I really should just quit. But we thought I was gonna die quickly, but I ended up like somehow weaseling my way and winning the whole thing by myself. And it's like I shouldn't have been able to do that, but
Makes
you
for a
did.
good story though, right? So it was a good experience. The
Yeah,
fact
it
that
was
you
a good
managed to
experience.
do that.
Yeah. But I felt very guilty.
Shogunstein, throughout as a kid on a rainy day on Long Island, we never thought that way about Monopoly. We loved it as a kid. We did ever contemplate player elimination. I think he meant didn't. As a factor,
No, it's a question.
Yeah, did
It's
we
a
ever
question.
contemplate player elimination as a factor?
I was lost on that. Yeah. Okay. Did we ever contemplate player elimination as a factor? We loved it, and Risk and Stratego, and yeah, I mean, back in the day when you didn't have as many options for games, and a lot of them had player elimination. Though I am going to disagree with Stratego because that's a two-player game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if you eliminate someone, that's how you win, and then it's game over. But for Risk and Monopoly, yeah, definitely there's player elimination. That can definitely be a problem. But and yeah, I think modern perspective is definitely playing a part here, because when those games came out in the mid 20th century, yeah, nobody thought of those. Nobody thought of it in the late 20th century. If you were playing it in the 1980s, still everybody was like, this is what a board game is. And player elimination is something that happens in a lot of multiplayer board games. In fact, the ones where it didn't happen, like Clue, kind of were an aberration in that time period, because like Clue, there is no player elimination. Somebody discovers, the person, the place, and the weapon, and it's game over. That's it. But far more multiplayer games in that era, yeah, there was player elimination.
Yeah, and I think of Risk, like can go on for days and days and weeks and years, but I like some re-implementations of it. Like I never got super into it because it went on too long. Wasn't that entertaining even as a kid, but when I was, I don't know, late teens, they did the like Metal Gear Solid edition, and we played that, and it like added objectives, and so we just like went until these objectives were met, or until somebody met 3 objectives, and it was like, this is amazing, this is the best version of Risk I've ever played, like, because then you weren't focused on like eliminating people, you were focused on like getting certain things done.
The Game of Thrones version does the same thing. The Game of Thrones Risk.
I bet
it's very good like that.
I bet a few of the rethemes realize that like a lot of people don't want to play for hours and hours, especially for like an IP game. People don't want that like super hardcore experience of doing the same thing over and over and over again for hours and hours.
So to be clear, I believe Lynn and I, because Lynn kind of fully convinced me that there definitely is fully. I'm going to go with what Lynn said earlier, that there definitely is objectively bad games, but it seems like you two are not convinced. You two are on the side that it's all subjective, no matter what. Am I correct in that?
I would be, yeah. I mean, not for a huge amount, but yeah, there's outliers where, 99.9% of people hate that game, but you're going to have that person who's like, oh, are you kidding me? That's awesome. I love it.
Now, does that automatically prove that it is subjective then? Or can somebody be wrong?
Well, somebody can be wrong, obviously, but if it's good to them, it's art, isn't it? It's in the eye of the beholder. So.
Okay, but what if, now hold on, but what if a game is so poorly written in the rules and never play tested to the point where it literally doesn't work? Like it literally doesn't, because we had gotten a game, I don't remember the name of it now. There was a game we had bought years ago, still modern gaming era, where you were running around a haunted asylum, and the way the game rules were written, it was impossible to win.
Was it called like Sanatorium?
That might have been it. And it was literally impossible to win the game. And we went over it and over it, and we're like, no, this is how it's written. This is how you're supposed to play it. And like, it just wasn't possible to win the game. To me, that's got to be a objectively bad game. It's literally broken. The rules are broken. They don't work.
Yeah, but then you're always going to get that person who's super clever on Board Game Geek, and they're going to go, I fixed it for you. And then if you play it.
But is that still the same game? They had to change the rules. They made it their own. They made a different game out of it.
I feel like some game designers do that anyway, don't they? Every now and
Yeah,
then
there's
you
updates on rule books.
Yeah.
If the designer came out with a new edition with a new rule book, I would say sure. But like if they don't, if it's just the fans going, oh, here's a way to fix it and make it playable, I feel like again we're back to that different activity that Riley was talking about, where you're like, I'm doing this as a game design activity. I'm going to fix a bad game.
Remember that episode that I can't remember who the guest was. That's terrible. And the guy who was on this show said the act of reading the book, the role.
Oh, Riley said that because it was someone he had interviewed.
Okay, without playing it is playing the game.
Yeah, I think it was you, Riley. Right? Am I right that you said that?
Yeah, for me, sometimes I thought you said that too. Actually, like when you get like a new RPG and just like read. Oh no, that was the guest, right?
It was the guest.
Maybe it was the guest.
Yes, I would agree with that too.
Shoot,
because I buy a lot of role playing books and I read them, but I don't use them.
Was that?
Darn. Okay, it must have been one of our guests. I'm gonna have to go back through
our guest.
Yeah, I apologize to who said it. That I cannot recall who said it. If someone in the chat remembers who said that in a previous episode, let us know. But yeah, they had said that reading a game book, reading a role playing game book, thinking about a game that is playing the game in a different form. So is what you're suggesting then that Riley's activity of redesigning the game is also playing the game?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
if you're getting enjoyment out of it, is it all bad? Like that game that you're talking about, the Asylum one. Did you have any fun playing it?
Or it was it was so bad.
So I pulled up, on Amazon. I pulled up the Kraft game, and there are 115 reviews for it. Is it Kraft? Whatever it is. Yeah, the variety game pack.
Oh, the Kraft Heinz variety pack.
And it's got 4.5 stars. So, but granted, I started reading through them real quick, and a lot of them are just like, the packaging is really fun. But some of them are like, this was great for my kids. They were really entertained with the games. But a lot of them were like, the packaging is fun.
Yeah, you can't trust Amazon reviews there.
Yeah.
You got to read. People rate something 1 star and be like, this was the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, have you done star ratings before?
And also, like, there's a lot of times you see things rated and you read the review and you're like, this was done by someone at the company.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, those are not trustworthy. And then
I think some of those were legit, like obviously somebody enjoyed it. And it's probably like, I bet if Angela got that game, played it with her grandkids, they would be laughing and being silly. It would be that silliness factor with that.
Which is joy. It's joyful. It's wonderful.
I feel so torn because I do feel like in the case of the Kraft Heinz variety pack, which Lynn brought up as the example of games that are objectively bad, I feel like I thoroughly agree with Lynn, and I think the reason you guys don't agree is you haven't played them.
Yeah. Oh, we
I feel like if you did,
like it.
Yeah, it's awful. It's so bad.
Depending on the situation, we might enjoy it.
And it is possible. I have had occasion to enjoy games that I do think are bad, and in point of fact, that's the big part of this this topic. I mean, I said, for instance, for nostalgia's sake, I will pull out Lone Wolf and Cub and play it and enjoy it, and I love the theme and I love the nostalgia, and also when I was a kid, my grandma bought it for me and she played it with me, and I have all those memories. But I look at the mechanics and I'm like, they don't really hold up. It kind of is. It is bad by modern standards. Like, you compare it to modern games, you're like, this game does not hold up. I don't know. Like, I'm torn because I am definitely swayed by both of your arguments that it should that anybody could enjoy. Someone could enjoy anything. There's someone out there who could enjoy anything, regardless. And I'm swayed by that a bit, but at the same time, I'm also very much influenced by Lynn's argument that there are some games that just, games, especially, I think the thing that really keeps me from doing it is I don't think redesigning a game is playing the game. I think reading the rule book is, but I don't think redesigning it is. I feel like that's a separate activity that you're using the game for, but I don't think it's playing the game. And I think a game that is just literally broken from the get-go is objectively bad. The
Okay,
kind of game
what about this? I've got a question for you then. It's just come to my mind. Historical context. So you're saying those games are bad. They're bad now compared to modern board games, right?
Right.
But if you took a mobile phone, like an old Nokia from, I don't know, 1995, and compared it to an iPhone, of course, you're going to go, that is a terrible phone.
Right. For now.
Right.
Exactly.
For now.
Well,
but does that make the game bad?
To make a phone call? Because then it's perfectly fine.
Say it again, Lynn.
If you're just using the phone to make phone calls, and it's perfectly fine. I mean, modern day smartphones are much more than phones, so it's not really a comparison that you can make.
But the Lone Wolf and Cub game compared to Dead of Winter, do you know what I'm saying, or am I saying it wrong?
No, I get it, but the thing is, you're asking me, does that change my opinion, thinking of it in a historical context? And I think that the problem is that what you're saying is exactly what I was saying to begin with for my point, which is that back then I would have liked it and would have thought of it fairly highly. And now, compared to modern games, it's bad because in a modern context, it's just not good.
Only bad because of the comparison. It's not. Okay,
yes,
so
definitely.
That's subjective then, right? Because then you liked it. Now
well,
you've done it.
I feel like she you walked right into it.
Sneaky.
No, I'm not. Honestly, I'm not trying to be sneaky, and honestly, I'm really not that smart to have like.
Okay.
I'm just trying to work out.
By the definition of the word subjective, I have to concede that you got me there. I do. I have to concede that you got me there. All right, hold on 1 second. I want to get some we got some comments going in the chat. Yeah, this is great though. No, she got me. It's totally subjective. I think we as modern board gamers do not necessarily buy games the way the vast majority of the public buys games. And this is a very valid point. Right. We don't. That is true. Next, he said, there are way more people buying and enjoying Monopoly and IP games and Target games that we as modern board gamers diss on. And that is true. They are evergreens. They sell tons and tons of copies. And also Shogunstein said, what percentage of the public buys a modern board game at $50 versus, say, Fortnite Monopoly at Walmart? And it's true. Those mass market games outsell the hobby games that we would call good games. And then let's see. Board Game Hot Takes said, hi, Board Game Hot Takes. Said, great point. Smartphone Inc. is a surprisingly fun game. I have not. Is that an actual game or is that a joke about the smartphone?
Yeah, that's a game.
Yeah,
oh, okay. Oh, I haven't played it. And also said, it's only subjective for time travelers.
Hey, Tim, get out of here. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks for coming, Tim.
Represent. Okay. So let's see. And then Shogunstein again says, my most popular YouTube video by far, by huge numbers, is Sequence by far. I don't know Sequence.
Sequence is like a super simple. Yeah, like my wife and I probably play that like every other year. Or we'll play it with like my parents because it's one of those games that's just like, if you know a deck of cards, then you can play it pretty much. Like if you're familiar with that, it's a great game.
I'm going to partially concede to you guys down below. Partially, not fully. There's a few circumstances where I'm still with Lynn on this, and let me explain. So most games, it can be very subjective whether it's good or bad. Even games that a lot of people say are objectively bad, like Monopoly, I think it can be very subjective. But I do think there are certain circumstances, and I'm going to really stick to my guns on the ones where you have broken, non-play tested, non-proofread rules. Those are bad. Those are just bad. If you have to redesign the game yourself, that's bad. That's a bad game. I'm going to go a little more wishy-washy on the player elimination than I was before. If you know what, if you're getting into a game with player elimination and you fully know what you're getting into and you're okay with it and you get eliminated and you've got another activity to do and it doesn't bother you, then yes, subjectively you can still think that game is good. So I'm going to go, all right, fine. But for me, subjectively, I would hate being eliminated half an hour into a 5-hour game. That would drive me insane.
I know that Tim from Board Game Hot Takes would say, since he's here, he's reminding me, a lot of Kickstarter games are probably objectively bad because they're not play tested properly, or the rule books aren't written very well or proofread. So, like, you know, and I think it goes to that kind of thing of.
But you don't agree.
I don't agree, because I think you can still have fun with it unless a game is just completely broken. But I haven't had that experience yet. I haven't had an experience where I've gotten a Kickstarter, busted it out, and then been like, what? Like, I can't, this is unplayable. Like, so
I have had that experience. So it has bugged me.
There's that Dracula's Castle game that was terrible too.
No, it was called Van Helsing. It was Van Helsing. Oh my God, that game was objectively terrible. Oh my God. Yeah, I think that was what it was called. I think it was called. Was it? Yeah, I found it. I just found it. Hold on.
It was like the rules didn't make sense, and we tried playing it anyway.
Yeah, it was.
It was like they used Google Translate for the English.
Oh no! Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that would make it very rough.
This is one of those occasions where Lynn picked up this. Just look at the cover, and I'm sure you can tell it's bad. No,
I think it was in like a dollar bin or something.
Yeah, that's what I would see. You'd see this at like Goodwill, right?
Exactly. And yeah, that I remember. Oh God, that game was awful, absolutely awful. Yeah, and I did feel like after we tried playing it, I felt like it was objectively bad. Now, that said, I do have to concede that if you're willing to try to redesign the rules with that one, that would be one that you might have fun with. It had some cool pieces. It had a cool board. If you were going to do, and Angela said she considers I'm trying to point in the right direction. Angela said that she considers the redesign of the rules a type of playing the game. And if you do agree with that sentiment, I would have to say then yeah, it's subjectively bad. And Lynn and I subjectively hated that game. Hated it, and
I would never want to rewrite any rules. Yeah. By the way, I like a game to come finished. Mm-hmm. You know, but then like Riley's story about the Lost thing. It because your love of Lost and probably seen the characters and, you know, maybe certain areas of the island or whatever, you still had fun. So it is hard.
It's still got some of those nostalgia things, but
yeah, a lot of the things have come down to nostalgia that we've discussed, though, right?
Yeah. Well, it's usually either been nostalgia seems to be the largest grouping of reasons why we like a game that we know is bad, or theme seems to be the second largest grouping. Mm-hmm.
So kind of within that realm of like just you know, you don't have to necessarily rewrite the rules or decrypt the rules, but like, have you ever had a game where you've played it and you're like, oof, I almost had fun with this, but this one rule didn't work, so I'm going to homebrew it. Like, do you homebrew very many games?
But if it's just one rule, that's easy to do. I'm talking about where like the rule book is literally just broken.
Okay,
Which
I was
would-
just wondering if like if you have to homebrew a game, homebrew 1 or 2 rules still can be fun, right?
And I would do that, but I would also hold it against the game and how I rated it.
Okay. See, I guess that's the thing. I don't do reviews as much, so I'm not as like critical. I don't have to like dive in necessarily as deep.
So so you got Shogunstein doing some comments. He was talking about that he's had some unplayable Kickstarter games. However, with those terrible Kickstarter games, some people are not honest because they spent so much money on the game and waited so long for it to show up. They're not honest with their reviews. Now, this is a thing I have seen. You do have these people who, because they spent a bunch of money on it, they feel they have to like it. It's like, oh, I have to enjoy this. You see a lot of them, they'll rate it on Board Game Geek before it even arrives, and you know it hasn't arrived, so they can't have played it.
But you get people who do the same thing, like Libertalia, right? Was the Winds of Galecrest. People were going on there rating it 1 star. The game wasn't even out for like another month and a half, and they're just like, this art is terrible. They've ruined the game, so it kind of goes both ways. First of all, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't rate a game until you've actually played it.
And then he said, have fun just pledging the game and waiting for it, regardless of whether the game is good or if they ever played it. And not me, but for some reason, the fun is the whole Kickstarter experience of the pledge campaign and waiting for the game to show up. True. And then, which we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier. And when Shogunstein was talking about the like people have paid so much money for it, yeah, I definitely think that's one for a lot of people where they got Marvel United and it's just like, well, I spent $300 on it, like, so yes, I'm gonna say it's good because I don't want to admit that.
I've got a game up there that I spent a lot on, and I open it and it looks absolutely stunning, but I have no, like, I just don't want to play it. My interest, like before the Kickstarter was like this, and then when it arrived, I was like, wow, this is amazing, and then
yeah, I mean, that's the thing too with Kickstarter, right? Is I've noticed it's been easier for me not to back as many Kickstarters because I avoid going into the comments section, the chat, like, and then I don't get caught up in the hype and like typing and reading and keeping up with it. I'll read the updates when it comes out. If it catches me, it catches me. If not, then like I can move on. But sometimes I've backed a game in the past because the hype of the comments. Yeah. And,
so. Like that one up there.
Hey, Lynn, I wanted to ask you, Lynn, because you've been a little quiet in the conversation lately. Are you swayed at all? Has the conversation swayed you at all in regard to certain categories of games or certain things wrong with games on whether or not they can be subjective? Because your initial statement was there definitely are objectively bad games. Have you now reconsidered certain types of games at all, or are you still?
No, I still believe that there can be objectively bad games.
That's totally fair. See, because even the belief that it can be objective or subjective is subjective.
True.
Oh, such double talk. All right, so Board Game Hot Take says, what game, Angela?
Oh, the game's my father's work. Which it's absolutely beautiful. Like the production on it is just absolutely stunning. But it's 3-player to start with, 3 players and more. So that's put it on the back burner for me straight away. And I don't know. I think I'd literally, like Riley mentioned, I think I got caught up in the hype.
So I'm glad I didn't get caught up in that one because I've heard a lot of people who've actually played it say, like I really want to like it because I was so excited for it, but I can't get into it. Like it's not hitting it.
And it goes for hours as well. So that doesn't help.
What killed your enthusiasm for it?
Well, 3+ players, the fact that it goes for hours and hours, which I wasn't really expecting. I don't remember that being mentioned on the Kickstarter. It probably was, and I've missed it. But usually I don't buy games that are 3+. I will avoid them. And I don't buy games generally that are like 150 minutes or over.
That's too long.
Lynn's with you on that one.
Mm.
So, all right. I think our conversation has kind of reached a logical end because I think while some of us, mostly me, have been swayed by other people's arguments, everybody else seems to have settled into where they are on this argument. And I mean, we talked about games that we kind of thought were sort of bad, but obviously not everybody agrees that they were objectively bad. Some of us just think that subjectively a lot of people dislike them, but they like them anyway. And some of the other of us think that there can be objectively bad games. You guys let us know what you think. This was a really fun conversation. I think this went some really cool places. Did you guys enjoy this conversation?
I did, and as you were explaining that, actually, I think if you put parameters on it, right? If you say like,
Yes.
as an adult, game night, like you're having a group of friends come over. If the four of us were getting together and we were going to play this great value or whatever it was called, oh gosh, the
The
Kraft
Heinz
game, right?
variety pack.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
Heinz variety pack.
Kraft Heinz variety pack. Oh God.
Like if we were going to play that would probably be an objectively bad game for
Yeah.
that situation. So like, I guess you could definitely put certain parameters on things and say like, this is objectively bad for adults. This is objectively bad for this situation.
This guy. He's my brother from another mother. This guy. I was going to say something very similar.
Were you really?
Yes,
Oh my
that I
goodness.
had come across a little bit to Josh's way of thinking,
Same.
and for that reason, yeah, it's if you put parameters around it, it can be objectively bad.
Yeah, I think
Objectively bad for the certain situations.
Yes.
That
See,
you know what?
I was right
See,
all along.
I think Lynn had a really like she was bringing up really good points about it, like, and it got me thinking about that. And then as you were like, because it was stirring around in my head, I'm like, well, how could it possibly be objectively bad? Like, because somebody out there's got to like it. And then when you were summarizing the conversation, I was like, that's how. There we go. It's finally clicking for me.
Well,
A little
that's
bit come
interesting
around.
because I feel like even though everybody mostly stuck to the opinion they started with, 3 out of the 4 of us moved in certain categories. But Lynn, as always, is a rock and a movable object. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I think this was a fun conversation because it is a good debate on objectivity versus subjectivity, especially when it comes to board games. I do a lot of reviews on the channel. Lynn's done a lot of reviews on the channel. Now you guys don't do as much reviews, but I mean, there is always the idea that most reviews, the vast majority of them, it's a very subjective thing. You're just
I was
giving
going to
your
say,
opinion.
Josh, you know why I don't call my reviews on my channel? They're called thoughts.
Mm.
And it's because I believe they're subjective.
And it is mostly, I
the
would agree.
review is
Yeah.
pointless.
Well, it's not pointless. You're giving your opinion, and other people decide whether they agree with you or not. But generally speaking, yeah, the idea of reviews are generally subjective. It's just that on rare occasions, I do think there are things that are objectively quality or poor quality. Regardless of what those things are, I think there are some things that you can objectively say, yeah, this is objectively great, or this is objectively crap. It's just those
Like
are
olives.
rare. Like
They're
what?
objectively
Like olives.
terrible.
I like olives.
I don't like olives either. Oh my gosh. Angela, are we the same?
Where has this conversation gone? Hey, Lynn, you like
Sorry.
olives, don't you?
I do.
We're seeing it again. It's the divide. It's the upper people and us lower people.
We were such a tight crew, and then this thing called olives
Hello,
came
Dick.
between us.
Uh,
All right, so I think we'll end the conversation there because I think we basically I don't want us to get into too much of repeating ourselves.
I did think of one other thing, if I may.
Oh, go ahead. By all,
So
of course.
I saw on social media today. Now I can't remember people's names, but like there's this Maori game coming out, and the designer had got teamed up with some Maori folk and were like cultural design consultants, and they gave him feedback, and he was pretty much like, no, like I read books, and so I'm going to stay like I know better than you. And it's like, so if you design a game that's probably, I mean, that's bad. That is objectively bad. To hire a consultant, they tell you something isn't okay in your game, and you decide to do it anyway. Like, that's a game I will never play. And so I think that makes for an objectively bad game. But I will have never played the game, so I guess maybe it actually could play fun, but because of thematic reasons, I just won't ever touch it.
I hate when people do that, though. When someone goes out of their way to get advice from someone else just to not listen to said advice. It's like, why did you get the advice to begin with then? Like,
Yeah.
if you weren't going to listen to it, if you were just going to go with what you said, whether they agreed with you or not, why did you bother? That's so frustrating. That is so frustrating. Yeah. On that note,
sorry. Okay. Yes, that's all.
I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. This was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and we're going to be doing next month, last Monday of the month. It's going to hopefully be last Monday of each month now at 11 p.m. Chicago time. We're going to be doing Game Night Insights, and our topic for next month is going to be, we're going to be doing a countdown of our top 10 favorite classic video games, getting a little bit off topic from tabletop games for once. And as our special guest next month, we are going to have joining us, we're going to have Glenn Drover, the board game designer of such great games as Extraordinary Adventures Pirates, Raccoon Tycoon, and Lizard Wizard, and Victory and Glory Napoleon, etc., etc., etc. So good nights. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And tune in next month for our next episode of Game Night